What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is Legitical Response. We cover political news. We keep you up to date and keep you informed with everything that the government does. Now, I always talk about the climate agenda and the climate cultists and how I don't buy into their BS all the time, right? Like, sure, I understand climate change is a real thing. It really is. The climate is changing, most definitely. And are we changing the climate with our carbon dioxide emissions? Sure. Do I think, though, that sea levels are going to rise so badly and just flood the entire world? No, of course not. I don't think there's some sort of climate disaster that's right around the corner that's 10 freaking years away. No, I think that's more like 100 years, if not more, away. And you know what? When you look at some of the politicians that are pushing this climate agenda BS, right? You look at some of their actions. They're constantly flying around on private jets. They're doing things that make no sense for the climate agenda. You know, buying beachfront property. Well, hang on. I thought the sea level was going to rise and all this other BS. I thought there was going to be much more extreme weather. Why are you buying beachfront property in the Gulf of Mexico? I wonder why that is. Yeah, hurricanes are a thing, by the way. And these people are just trying to lie to everybody, to virtue signal, to make themselves just look better in front of their cultists, their climate cultists. That's all that is. A politician will lie to get and say and do anything they want to just to get more political power. For God's sakes, look what they're doing with the border, allowing millions of criminal aliens to come across that border just to get a little bit more political power because they think it's unfair that the vast bulk of the country is Republican. Yeah, it's outright BS. But a politician will be a politician. And there's one thing that a politician is guaranteed to do, and that is to lie to you. Another thing that they're doing with their climate agenda is absolutely destroying this country, or at least, if their policies were implemented, would destroy this country. The hardest of the climate cultists would love nothing more than to shut down all the coal-fired power plants, right? Which, experts, energy experts, engineers, climate experts also agree that shutting down all of the coal-fired power plants just like that would absolutely cause much more death than any sort of climate disaster that may come from us changing the climate. But that is not stopping the Biden administration from trying to destroy this country. Check this out, y'all. U.S. Republican attorneys general sue to stop EPA's carbon rule. This one is absolutely nuts. We've covered some of their other rules in the past, like trying to stop all of the internal combustion engine cars from being produced by 2035. Like, that's outright insanity. How can you tell somebody what type of car they have to get an electrical car, right? When we don't have the infrastructure for the electrical cars, right? Like, I only know of 2 charging stations in my area. An area of over 120-something thousand people in the greater metropolitan, if you want to call it that, area. Southwest Louisiana, Lake Charles, look it up. Yeah, we don't have very many electrical charging stations, and there is no plan that I know of, and I work in construction, to build more of these things. Especially considering that if they get rid of all internal combustion engine cars by 2035, or at least the sales of internal combustion engine cars by 2035. Yeah, we're not going to have enough power stations by that point. But that's just one point of contention, one of these rules that we are trying to strike down because it's absolute insanity. And here is another. Republican attorneys general from 27 U.S. states and an electric utility trade group sued the Environmental Protection Agency on Thursday, seeking to block a landmark rule requiring sweeping reductions in carbon emissions from existing coal-fired power plants and new natural gas plants. The rule, finalized by President Joe Biden's administration last month as part of an effort to combat climate change, was challenged in 3 lawsuits filed in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit, including one by 25 states spearheaded by West Virginia and Indiana, another by Ohio and Kansas, and a third by the Natural Rural Electric Cooperative Association. The rule mandates that many new gas and existing coal plants reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by 90% by 2032. Do you really think that's an attainable goal? 90% in what is that? 8 freaking years? Yeah, right. We don't have the technology in the first place to reduce those emissions by that much, regardless, right? But to do it in that short amount of time, yeah, they would absolutely be forced to shut these power plants down. And then what are you going to do for electricity? Huh? You better go out and get you some chickens, by the way, because you're going to need to have a little bit of farmland and a nice little garden and some chickens for some meat, because you're not going to have electricity unless you go get solar panels. Yeah. That's what they're trying to do to you. Say bye-bye to Starbucks. Say bye-bye to McDonald's, because they're not going to be able to operate without electricity, by the way. Well, yeah, that's something that our modern society, our modern civilization, we kind of need electricity to power cell phones and pretty much every freaking thing that has gone electric. Yeah, we can't run anything. They're trying to get rid of gas stoves, for God's sakes. That's ridiculous, in my opinion, because you know what? Living down here in Southwest Louisiana, gas stoves saved my life, as a matter of fact, because when you get hit by a hurricane, guess what? The power goes out. And guess what? When the power goes out, the water is not safe to drink. So you have to boil that water. So you either have to go outside, build a fire to boil some water, unless you have a gas stove that, it just so happens to work great. Just great. That saved my life, as a matter of fact, because I didn't have the means, and I probably would have been shut down because, hang on, what do they do after a hurricane comes through? They ban you from having any open fires. Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, you can't go outside and build a fire to boil water, to drink, to live. So these people are insane, if you ask me. The requirements are expected to force the U.S. power industry to install billions of dollars worth of emissions control technologies or shut down the dirtiest facilities running on coal. Then what are you going to do for power? Yeah, these people want to destroy the country. They don't care about Republicans, because most of this is going to be in Republican states, because that's where most of the coal-fired power plants are, because those are less developed than other places, right? Like most of your big cities and stuff, yeah, they have this technology. They have the means to do this. But this also means, now that I think about it, installing billions of dollars of emissions control technology. You know what that's going to do to your electricity bill? Yeah, that's going to make your already ridiculously high electricity bill skyrocket. You're not going to be able to afford electricity, much less have it there. Sure, you got electricity, but you can't freaking afford it anymore. Thanks, Joe Biden. He's trying to ruin this country. I always say this because once again, I'm constantly reading out these stories, and I see all the little things that Joe Biden is doing to destroy this country. Sure, it may be for the right reasons. Sure, humans are polluting the planet with carbon dioxide. We don't know technically if that's a bad thing or exactly how much carbon dioxide would push us over a certain point. Don't let those people lie to you and say, oh, we can't go over this much or this is going to happen. They don't actually know, because we're dealing with global atmospheric conditions here. Yeah, they can't predict that. I'm sorry. I don't care what a scientist tells you. They can think whatever. They can run their calculations, but they have no actual clue. They don't have any proof, if you will. They just see something, so they say something. And yeah, it's a good idea if we cut these emissions back, by the way. Yeah, I don't think we should be producing billions of tons of carbon dioxide a year. I don't think that's a good idea. And yeah, I do believe that we need to cut back on this. And we do need carbon capture technology installed in some of these coal-fired power plants. But to do it in such a short span of time is absolutely ridiculous. You're going to completely collapse the electricity utility industry, or the prices are going to skyrocket so much people aren't going to be able to afford them, collapsing the industry, so they're not going to be able to maintain their coal-fired power plant because their costs are so high, people can't afford to pay them. So what are you going to do? The government's going to subsidize some of that stuff. Oh, wait, here we go. More tax dollars coming out of your paycheck. Yeah, that's probably what would happen. I have no idea. The regulations are part of Biden's broader climate agenda and target a sector that is responsible for nearly a quarter of the country's greenhouse gas pollution. The EPA declined to comment. West Virginia Attorney General Patrick Morrisey said in a statement that the regulations are based on emissions reduction technologies that have not been meaningfully deployed in the real world, exceed the EPA's authority under the Clean Air Act, and would radically transform the nation's energy grid without explicit congressional permission to do so. That's something I haven't mentioned yet. Yeah, he's just making up all these rules, and guess what? Congress doesn't wield the power that they should. They don't wield the power that they have. They don't wield the power that they need to wield to stop this out-of-control rogue Biden administration that is hell-bent on destroying the country, that is hell-bent on making you pay more for every freaking thing. He was hell-bent on taxing you through the freaking roof, taxing you right out of a job. You're going to pay all your paycheck in taxes. It's just outright insane that Congress doesn't wield the power of the purse like they should. As a matter of fact, that's what I'm constantly bitching about. Appropriations packages that they pass, giving us $1.7 trillion deficit spending. That's ridiculous. What sane person would vote to spend in a $1.7 trillion deficit when your damn budget is $7-something trillion? That's nuts, y'all. I don't know. Let me know down in the comment section if you find that a little bit nuts, that they're spending over 10% of their budget is in a deficit. That's ridiculous. He said the rule is setting up the plants to fail and therefore shutter, altering the nation's already stretched grid. Yeah, that's right. National Rural Electric Cooperative Association CEO Jim Matheson, whose organization represents nearly 900 local electric cooperatives, said in a statement that the rule is unlawful, unreasonable, and unachievable. The lawsuit came a day after 23 Republican attorneys general from states including West Virginia, North Dakota, Texas, challenged a different EPA rule that limits the amount of mercury and other hazardous pollutants that can be emitted from power plants. Legal experts say the EPA's assertion that the emissions reductions are feasible if power plants install carbon capture and sequestration technologies which capture emissions before they are released into the atmosphere is unlikely to be a major issue in the litigation. The Clean Air Act requires the EPA to set standards that are attainable using technologies that are adequately demonstrated, but while the EPA said it believes CCS is viable and cost-effective, opponents say the technology is not ready to be deployed at power plants across the country. CCS has been installed at dozens of facilities that process various fuels, but just 4 coal-fired power globally have CCS installed, according to the Global CCS Institute. They've taken a pretty aggressive view of what it means to have something be adequately demonstrated. I just think the Supreme Court will look at this and say EPA is out over its skis, said Jeff Homestead, a lawyer at the law firm Bracewell and a former EPA official during the administration of Republican former President George W. Bush. But supporters say billions of dollars in funding in the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act will make CCS cost effective, and the Clean Air Act is designed to force technological advances. The law was developed to make sure these newer and yet to be deployed technologies are deployed, said Jay Duffy, a lawyer at the Center for Applied Environmental Law and Policy. Yeah, another thing that the Inflation Reduction Act is supposed to do that has nothing to do with inflation, and as a matter of fact, if you logically work through that, will actually cause inflation. It'll cause your damn electricity bill to go up. It'll cause power outages, for God's sakes, because they have to shut down some of these power plants, or at least sections of these power plants, to install the carbon capture technology. And it's not fully developed yet, and they're trying to rush this stuff into service. Do you know how many coal-fired power plants we have in this country? Do you really think they can get that done in 8 years? Do you really think the Inflation Reduction Act, it has enough subsidies in it to cover the cost of some of this stuff? No, it doesn't. Matter of fact, they're going to have to do a whole hell of a lot more to get this done, which I'm all in agreement with. I think that we need to install the carbon capture technology. I think it's a great idea, and if it can reduce emissions by 90%, great. As a matter of fact, let's keep pushing forward. Let's get those emissions down to 1% or 0.5%. That would be great, but that's going to be in the far future. You know, maybe put some more subsidies into fusion technology. How about that? But no, they don't want to do that. They just want to destroy the country, all to virtue signal to their climate cultists to get more votes to win a stinking election. And they don't care if the country, if the economy, if your pocketbook gets destroyed in the process, is what it seems like to me. But far be it from me to impose my thought process on you. Let me know what you think about all this down in the comment section. Do you really think that we can get this done without destroying the economy? Am I completely off the mark with this? Let me know what you think about all this down in the comment section. That's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching, and y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.